today we got a really good speaker. I mean, will share a lot of insight for us. So, I mean, let me pass on to our Vice Chairman, I mean, for Program and Research, Samuel, who will do an introduction on our speaker. Okay, Samuel, over to you.
Right, sure. Welcome everyone for our knowledge sharing session by Cloud Security Alliance, Hong Kong and Macau chapter. So today we have our honorable security researcher, Rizan. I've known him personally, and he's a very passionate cybersecurity professional. He's a researcher, he loves Bug Bounty, and he has more than 20 years of experience in the information security field. He holds several industry relevant certificates, CISSP, CISA, OSCP, OSCE, and OSWE as well. So those are all very highly honorable certification in the information security community. Yeah. And he's also part of the cybersecurity surveillance group supporting law enforcement agencies globally in lawful interceptions. He's currently leading a group of talented security testers for consulting firm based out of Colorado. He's also a certified trainer and presented technical talks in several cybersecurity conferences. So regarding on today's talk, Rizan will brief all about his stories about bug bounties and how he started hacking for hackerone, bugcrowd, yeswehack. One of his targets was US Department of Defense, and even hacking into US Army recruitment websites and stuff. So without further ado, I'll pass on the time to Rizan. Please, we are hoping to hear your stories.
Cool. Thank you, Samuel. Right, so I'm sharing my screen right now. Just confirmation that you guys can see the correct screen.
Loud and clear.
Loud and clear, cool. Right, let's get on. So I'm gonna make a short disclosure here, just to keep myself out of trouble, right? Very natural of me to do this on almost all my talks. So before I start my presentation, here are some important announcements. So these are the standard disclosure. Contrary to the presentation's title that I'm making right now, I did not do anything illegal, nor did I modify, view, exfiltrate anyone's data other than the test accounts that I created for the purpose of this pen test. Any information in my findings were part of the US DoD VDP program, Vulnerability Disclosure Program on HackerOne, and it was already made public. It was fixed back in 2019 or 2020, somewhere around between those two times. I've written consent from the program owner to publicize these findings. The purpose of my talk is purely information sharing. And of course, I do not condone any illegal activities or whatsoever. Thank you. Please stop me if you have any questions as I proceed. This is a fairly intimate discussion we have, so feel free to ask any questions. So Samuel has done my introduction. I'm gonna skip this slide. And let's get down to business. Right, so back in 2019/2020, during COVID time, a lot of us, well, most parts of the world were locked down, and I couldn't go out. I started looking around on the US DoD VDP program. They have a pretty wide program, spread out assets throughout the internet. And I was maybe lucky, or maybe I was at the right place at right time. So I scored a couple of high, one high, one critical, and one medium finding for the US Department of Defense. I'll give you a bit of background on what these three findings were. Again, this is my profile on HackerOne. You can have a look at it. So everything, well, not everything, most of the information are already displayed there. However, it's highly redacted by the US DoD triage team. So starting with the first vulnerability that I discovered was at the Army recruitment website. This is for the critical vulnerability found disclosed 4 years ago. And I guess I was at the right place at the right time. The 0 day did not belong to me. he belonged to Orange Side. So we will talk a bit about the Pulse SSL vulnerability that he dropped in Black Hat a couple of weeks or months. I believe it was weeks before I found the vulnerability. And then moving on, I found two vulnerabilities that were chained together over here. This is the medium and the high. These two belong to the same website owned by the US DoD. It appears to be a social networking site belonging to them, to US DoD, and it's used for something like LinkedIn, something like where all the government departments under the DoD can hook up and have discussions, forums, pretty much like LinkedIn, yeah. So it's a professional forum for them to communicate among different departments within the entire DoD organization. So the information there wasn't like what I say, confidential or top secret, else I won't be here. Yeah, it was, I think, at most restricted. We will walk through some of the slides, and I can show you some of the information. But again, the information that I harvested primarily belonged to me. I created test accounts. This social networking website is open to anyone, not just to the US DoD department personnel. Yeah, anyone could actually create it. But in order to get into the private forums, you had to be approved by the administrator. Yeah. So I didn't go as far as infiltrating their private forums, of course, because I follow the responsible disclosure guideline. So I stopped there. But what I found was two vulnerabilities that I managed to chain up. Yeah. So the first one was IDOR leak. We'll talk a bit about what IDORs are. So I found some information where I can pull their user IDs. I found that the user ID was actually useful in my next exploit, which was the full account takeover. This is another typical IDOR vulnerability where I chained the medium to the high, and I managed to reset the any user's account password. Yep. So let's go on further. We covered this, and this is the website. So I'm not gonna give the name. I mean, you can Google it. Perhaps you can find it. So at the website, mentioned that unclassified information sharing and collaboration enterprise platform for US DoD. Yeah? So the keyword here is unclassified, providing traditional and non-traditional mission partners, web-based community spaces, and tools to effectively plan, train, respond, and meet training mission objectives. So it says it all here, yeah? Like what I tried to describe in the first slide. It's a collaboration platform for the US DoD different departments to share information. Yeah, and part of the the website, right, is made up of different organizations within the US DoD space. So you can see the US Army Guard Battalion 19 Airborne. There is a Sabre Group and so forth. Yeah, Intelligence Squadron. So they're all using this site. And again, like I mentioned, it's public. However, they do have private forums within this website. And so I signed up. I managed to find this by Googling the, I did some Google docking. Honestly, I can't recall what were the keywords because this happened like 3-4 years ago. Because I was interested in targeting US DoD VDP programs, mainly just to carve a name for myself. They don't provide any monetary, remuneration, but they do provide reputation. So that was what I was after. So when I found this site, okay, yep, signed up, created my own account, and found out that yeah, it's used by US DoD, and it definitely falls under the US DoD's VDP program. So I'm in scope, yeah, for the I would say the hackerone VDP. And then I started searching the sites, and I found profile. These are public profiles, yeah, of the personnel that are currently signed up under the this social networking website. It's just like your LinkedIn. you have your name, your public email address, phone number, whatever information that they want to share about themselves. Yeah. So you can see here, this is a lady working for the US military station in Africa, perhaps, and yada yada phone number. Okay, so that's normal. Yeah. So it's like a LinkedIn profile. So I went through a couple of them. It looks interesting. And then what I found was this bug. So before I go into the details of the IDOR, I first need to give a description or a walkthrough of what IDOR is, because some of you might or might not have heard of it. So it stands for Insecure Direct Object Reference Vulnerability. It's sort of like an authorization bug, where after you have getting some background noise in there.
Excuse me, Cheng Xiufeng, can you mute your mic? Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So I was saying, yeah. So this is an IDOR vulnerability. It's sort of like authorization issue. Yeah. It's very prevalent, very common, especially when I do pen tests. I'm a full-time pen tester, by the way. So during my engagements, this kind of stuff pop up very frequently. In fact, just knowing how to look for IDOR vulnerabilities, you pretty much will, how they say, will find high-value targets like this. Yeah. From back where I come from, they say can cari makan. In Malay means you can actually make a living just by knowing IDOR vulnerabilities as a pen tester, honestly speaking. So what happens here is after the user have authenticated to the web server, he or she will be given a cookie, credential cookie, session ID or something. Based on his session ID, he should only be able to call records belonging to him. For instance, like if I want to call my profile, I should only be able to call my profile. Well, I can call other people's profile, but I should not be able to edit it at least. Yeah, I can't make changes to it. Right. So there must be some kind of access control list that dictates how this particular user, where he or she can call these records. Yeah. So for example, he can call his own record. He can view other people's record, but he can modify it as such. But the vulnerability exists when the access control after authentication is broken. Yeah. So that means the user has already authenticated, just like a normal user, but by tampering certain parameters in the request, he can not only view, but he can make modifications to other people's records or profiles. And that's what I found, right? Just by tampering the post request of authenticated user by changing certain parameters in the request, I was able to reset passwords belonging to different accounts, right? And by resetting the password, basically I take over those accounts. Honestly, I did not try to take over any US military accounts or what, because that would be against the hackerone, what do you call it, guidelines. So I had to be very careful about that, right? So I only created 2 user accounts belonging to me, and I just started messing around with it, and gave them the POC, the proof of concept, and they were happy with it, and they triage it. So let's have a look at how it looks like. So at the website, when you signed up, there is a warning here, telling you not to do naughty stuff, that you are being monitored, blah blah blah. So it's a public forum, anyone can sign up. But again, you got to be on the good side of things. And this is the account I created using my Gmail, and you notice that I put a dot here. So r.00t.pgp@rootpgp.com. So I did this on purpose so that if I remove, still getting some background noise. Okay, it's better. All right. So I was saying that I put the dot here just to differentiate a different user. So if I signed up the second time and I remove the dot, it means that I signed up using a second user account, something like that. But I just wanted to differentiate between the accounts that I created. It's sort of like an alias. So just by putting the dot, removing the dot, so forth. And what I noticed was when after I signed up, I created my own profile page. I noticed that the public email address displayed over here was different than the account that I signed up with. So the one I signed up with was R.00TPGP, right? This one is R00. So I was thinking, this is interesting. I think I need to probe further. It's things like this, very minuscule differences between dot, no dot, and I was like, this looks interesting. So I started probing further. And what I noticed was that in order to do an account recovery, meaning if you forgot your password and you just want to reset the password, you need the email address that you use to create the account, right? So it was the .r.00tpgp, blah blah blah, right? It wasn't the ROOT, the one that was displayed at the website. Yeah, it's different. So that triggered me. It's like something not right here. There must be some parameter that is controlling all this. Yeah, that means when I make a request to the server, there will be two email addresses. One is root PGP without the dot. Another one is r.00tpgp. So this triggered my sensors, right? And this is how it looks like when you do an account recovery. So I initiate the password reset for my own account, r.00t. So it came back, and there will be a link here. I purposely hit this link that there's a UUID at the back end there. You click on it, and that will reset your password. So the first thing I needed to do was to find more information about the users, about all the users that are available on this networking website. And I started burping it. So using burp, burp is a application proxy that pen testers use. If you've not heard about it, so it's pretty simple. Just by analyzing the request and the response of a user, for example, myself, if I make a request to my profile, my personal profile, I will need to include this request ID, request TID. Yeah, it's a 6 or 10 digit number, and it's a running number, I found out. So when you send a request, when I send a request to that particular endpoint, I will receive the ID. Yep, it's a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 digit. Yeah, it's like, okay, this is interesting. So now at least I know that each user on the system, every unique user have a unique ID, and it's a running number. Right? So I could actually increment this and pull more information. But then again, I thought to myself, there must be more to it. Yeah, because if you looked at you notice the previous slides I showed you, where I had the r.0, r00, pgp.com, blah, blah, blah. I'm pretty sure that is also part of the profile. Yeah. And I was really lucky, really lucky in the sense that I found another endpoint. This is to update my profile. Yeah. For example, if I wanted to change my original email, or I wanted to change my username, or change whatever that's in my profile, my public profile, I could actually just temper those values. Yeah, I could temper those values. And when I meant temper, meaning what I found was I could use my session, my verification token, and tamper with any other person's profile just by using the user ID. The user ID was either this parameter or this parameter, username or username, either one of this, because it's been a long time, it's redacted. I don't have the original, but I know that this perhaps was the user ID that I showed you in the previous slide, that 6-digit number. So I started tampering with this number. I started incrementing this number from, say, like 90512, 513, 514, 516, 517, or something like that. And I said, oh, I'm able to actually update other people's email addresses. Yeah, so there's an original email address here, and there's a recovery email address here. Yeah, so these two email addresses here are very important. Yeah, the original email address is the one used to sign up for the account, right? The r.00 something, and the recovery email, apparently, this is also the original email, but it can change. You can arbitrarily changes to anyone's email address. So that means by changing the username to, say, user A, and recovery email to my hacker one or my hacker email address, I essentially has updated his profile to say that his recovery email now belongs to me. Yeah, it's just swapping the recovery email. It's akin to like the picture I showed you initially, the IDOR. where an authenticated user tries to update his own profile, which is correct, that's allowed. But now an authenticated user is trying to update another user's profile, which he should not. And all he has to do is just to change the parameters in the post request, right? Which is the username, which is actually the what do you call the 6-digit number that I mentioned to you that I got from the earlier endpoint. So with that two information I got, the profile ID and also the original emails IDs I got, I just piece it together and I know that I can change anyone's recovery email address. Yeah, this is akin to like having a Facebook account and you are able to take over anyone's Facebook account. Yeah, just by changing his email address. Yeah, so that is bad. Yeah, and what I found was the funny part was the email, because I could change the recovery email and I could change the original email, right? I could actually point everything back to me. Yeah, because usually, like for example, in Facebook, if you want to change your email address, your recovery email address, there will be a confirmation email sent to you first, right? Not to the new email address, but to you, saying that, do you really want to change your original email address? If you say yes, yes, right? But in this case, I had full control of it. I could just divert that confirmation email to myself, right? To an attacker control email, and therefore I'm essentially approving my own. I'm approving someone else's change of email address. Yeah, I know this might sound maybe a bit confusing for you, but it's going back to this slide. All you need to know is that I was using my own session ID and I was messing around with other people's recovery email address. That's all. I just pointed to mine. And what happened is the confirmation email to change his recovery came to me, right? And when it came to me, all I had to do was click on this, and boom, voila! I have control of his email. So his account now belongs to me, right? And once his account belongs to me, I just need to go to the reset password page and reset his password. Yeah. So just say I change it to hacker pgp.hacker plus hacker. We are hacker one, and just initiate the recovery, and the email, what do you call this? The recovery token will be sent through an email to me with a UUID here. So I just click on it. So there was 2 steps to it. One is first is to change his recovery email to a hacker control email address, which is the first one here. And the second one is to initiate the password reset at the recovery account page, right? So essentially, I did this only on 2 accounts, A and B, belonging to me. But essentially, I could do it to other accounts, right? But I did not. So I just wrote a report. I even recorded it on video. Fortunately, I don't have the video anymore. They took it down. I don't have it in my hard drive anymore. It's deleted. And so I told them that the impact was high, which they agreed. I said that an attacker can add his email address into the recovery field of any member that has not yet defined or verified his recovery email address. So this meant that there is a caveat to it. I can only perform this attack if the recovery field was blank for some reason. If it was already populated, I can't update it. Yeah. But it was empty, I can append it. And the attacker will be able to force a password reset link to be sent to his email address and change the victim's password and logging into the victim's account with full account takeover, right? So again, this is the same thing. Like, for example, if you have a LinkedIn account, I could essentially reset anyone's LinkedIn account, right? Do an account takeover, meaning change his password and log into his account. Essentially, the user lost control of his account. Yeah. So it could be very well been a high, but I triage it as well. I said as a high, they accepted it, but I could have set it to critical. But it doesn't make any difference because they don't pay monetary rewards for this kind of findings. If it was on Facebook, it'd be a different story. Yeah. But I don't think it will be that easy to find something like this on Facebook or Instagram, right? So this is a timeline. And it was, like I said, it was 4 years ago. So when I reported it, it was in April 2020, 3 years ago. And they fixed it in, where was it? Resolve here, April 21st, 2020. So it was like 10 days, exactly, from the day I reported it to the time they fixed it. And then I asked them for full disclosure over here. Report has been disclosed. That was May, April, May. Yeah, disclosed in May. So that was about close to a month. And they allowed me to do a full disclosure. But of course, the report that I'm showing you, the contents of this were all redacted. So there were more to it, but I'm not able to show it to you. So that was it. It was my first part of my story. And if you have any questions, I can take it now. I have a second part, which was a critical bug I found also for the US DoD. But before I move to the second chapter, if you guys have any questions you want to shoot, just shoot right now. Else I'll go to chapter 2. No questions, right? Okay, cool. All right, if you do, just put them in the chat box. I'll answer them later. So let me move back. Moving on to chapter 2. Right. So this is the second part of the vulnerability. Well, it's not the same. It's different. It's not entirely not my work. In fact, I feel like a script kiddie doing this. But it's quite kind of interesting why they were also still impacted. So this was a finding made by Orange Sai and Mei Chang. I had the opportunity to meet Orange Sai early this year in the Philippines. Fantastic guy. He's really, really brilliant. For those who don't know him, he's a very famous security researcher. He has dropped numerous vulnerabilities research, and it's big time impact. If you are in the vulnerability research area, you probably heard of his name, right? So back then in 2019, around the time where I reported this, obviously it had to be after, he dropped a series of 0 days. Well, it wasn't 0 days. It was already informed to all the impacted vendors out there. But still, there were organizations, a large number of organizations, that failed to fix the vulnerability despite it being publicized already. And I'm pretty sure that his timeline gave them enough adequate time to rectify the bug that he found. So one of the bugs that I'm going to zoom in, this one in particular, he had at least a dozen, yeah, but I'm zooming in on just one in particular, was the pre-authenticated root RCE exploit chain for Pulse SSL VPN. So Pulse SSL is a very popular product. It's a VPN solution that runs on web, and it's out of the box. The exploitation is out of the box. There is no, how they say, customization that's required in order to exploit it. And it was dropped in I can't remember what month exactly, but it was quite early in 2019. Yeah, and it is used by very large corporations. Even the US DoD was using it. And what I found was hang on, let me show you this picture first. Okay, so what I found was a couple of sites. For example, the US Army, Twitter, Facebook, they were all using it, right? And in order to find the vulnerable endpoint, wasn't that difficult, honestly. He made full disclosure of the bug already, and they were given enough time to fix it. What I did was I just doc using Google Doc, and I started looking for the particular URL that was affected, the Pulse SSL endpoint that was affected. It's called Dana-NA, and the file type is CGI. And just by Google docking, you will find multiple targets on the internet, right? But a lot of them have already been patched. It was a critical bug out of the box. No customization required. There was an exploit already dropped. So a lot of it were already fixed. Okay. Now, before I move into what happened, let's look at the background of the bug, the one that Orange Sai publicized. Yeah. So he mentioned, this is directly from his disclosure. Yeah. More than 50,000 servers out there are impacted. Version 8.2 using Pulse Secure. And the keyword here is HTML5 access. So in 8.2, there was a function using the HTML5 parameter, where if you append this particular keyword, Dana HTML5 ACC guacamole, and you put any amount of characters, traversal in front of it, you can actually do what do you call it, a directory traversal. Yeah, you can move into any file system within the Pulse SSL host. Yeah, so it is sort of like a condition, if condition. No, sorry, it's not if condition. It's a HTML5 condition that was introduced into the code base of Pulse Secure. Yeah, wrongly introduced, that allowed directory traversal. Yep. So just by having the target address, and then you append that keyword I mentioned just now, the HTML5 ACC, plus append the directory traversal path after it, you can virtually just view files within the Pulse SSL operating system. So this proved devastating, because later people found that they could pull out a lot of information. Yeah, they could pull passwords inside database. Apparently, some of the passwords were stored in clear text on Pulse. I don't know why. It's not a good practice, but somehow the passwords were stored in plain text in Pulse. And not only that, there was also session IDs stored. I put a note here that this bug was not fixed after a year after I reported it. I'll tell you why. Yeah, because when I reported it to them, to one of the US DoD websites that was affected, they said that it was a duplicate, right? So I don't get anything, right? Case closed, right? But later I revisited the problem, and it appears that it was not fixed completely, at least. But so it's not just about getting the passwords. You could actually access the etc host file, which contain their internal IP address space, along with the host name, the FQDN. Yeah, so these are some of the FQDN belonging to the DoD. And these are the session IDs I was telling you. So these session IDs are part of the Pulse SSL VPN connection. So if you have the session IDs, you could actually hijack the VPN. Yep, there are steps for doing it. It's clearly documented on the internet. So yeah, I found their recruitment website, and apparently this recruitment website obviously is used by new recruits. Anyone who wants to join the US Army, they signed up, and when they sign up, they actually go through a VPN tunnel to sign up their particulars, like their date of birth, full name, residential address, particulars, put in all the information, and hopefully get selected for be enlisted in the Army. Yeah. So what I found was session IDs belonging to the affected website, along with clear text passwords. Yeah. So all this was reported. They know about it. They fixed the problem. It was a duplicate on my side, because I wasn't the first person to report it. They closed it out as a duplicate, so no kudos to me. And later they said it was resolved shortly after that. Yeah, so August 24th, they said it was already a duplicate, and they closed it after that. But I came back 1 year after they closed this bug. Yeah, so just remember 2019, right? August. I read this article in October 2020, nearly a year after that. CSA came up with an article saying that continued threat actor exploiting post-Pulse secure VPN patching. So I read it. I said, this is interesting. How can they exploit vulnerability that's already patched? So later I found out was those passwords that were leaked, that were, those clear text passwords that I showed earlier. This one, for example, was not changed. Yeah, because this belonged to the users, belonged to the recruits, right? So new recruits come, they always create a user account, right? And when the DoD patched the system, they didn't tell the recruits to change the password. They didn't enforce a mandatory password change. So therefore, even if you patch the vulnerability, the recruits' credentials were still the same, right? So I still had it. I still had those plain text passwords somewhere stored, and I just tried one or two, right? And I said, hey, look, this is impacted. There are still recruits that did not change the password. Why you did not enforce mandatory password change? Because after all, the session IDs and the clear text passwords were leaked, right? So after patching, you should enforce a mandatory password change to everyone. And they were like, oops, So again, it was triaged as critical, and it was fixed. Obviously, they enforce what they call password reset, mandatory password reset for all the users. That was the end of the story. So I got a critical from them. So I found a bug that was supposedly already patched 1 year after, but was still having issues because of the password change policy. And there were threat actors out there, bad threat actors, that were using this similar bug. So they were going around looking for Pulse SSL servers that were already patched, but still accessing the VPN because they already leaked the passwords. So potentially there were 50,000 servers out there that were already patched at that time, that were still impacted by this bug. So it was lucky that I read this article, and then it gave me some ideas on. I was just thinking how the threat actor could potentially do it. And it was mentioned in the article that they were reusing passwords, I believe. So that's how I got the idea and started testing again. Something like that. I have to look at this article carefully, but I know that this article was the one that triggered me to relook at some of my HackerOne reports. So yeah, that's about it. It's the journey.
All right, what a remarkable presentation, Rizan.
Thank you.
From one single dot to an EDOR vulnerability to full account takeover to a report of a new vulnerability. That's a remarkable story, man.
Thank you.
Right. So for the first chapter, I have a question. What do you think is the hardest part for you to get what you have done for chapter 1? What do you think is the hardest part?
It was finding the correct target. So when we look at the US DoD's VDP program, right? I'll just quickly put it here. It is a very wide program. US DoD VDP HackerOne, very wide. So in order to find the correct target, you have to really be what's that word? Creative, because they don't exactly tell you what is the address space, right? They don't say from this address to that address or this domain to that domain. Nothing like that. See, so they just say that any what do you call that? Sites that are owned by US DoD. Yeah. So I had to dock it.
Well, it looks
using keywords.
Okay. It looks like needle in a haystack, but Google Docs also will come out with a lot of results. How do you actually pinpoint into
Yeah, there was a lot of trial and error in there. So I came upon before I settled down on that social networking website. I came upon dozens of other websites belonging to them. And the first thing I look for is that can I actually create an account on those websites? And not many of those websites allowed account creation. So without account creation, I felt like it's going to be tough. So I just kept looking for login pages. So one of the docs I keyed in was login page, and then in text, US DoD VDP, something like that.
Right. So from, how do you say, from the moment when you had your burp captured, when you found that few parts of the parameters that you can manipulate, how long it took you to actually found out that you can modify something in the
Oh, it
account?
was pretty fast, in fact, because
Oh,
when
wow.
I created 2 user accounts first,
Okay.
I tested with well, I created 3, 4, 5 maybe, and
Right.
I started testing with it, and I use different session tabs. So I have this plugin for Firefox. It's called multi-session. So each session I log in with a different account. So I had like 5 different accounts logged in, and then I just start messing around with it, and boom, it just came to me. It's like, oh man, am I actually updating different accounts using the same request
Right.
verification token? And I said, that's it. I think I got it already. And
Right.
I was kind of tempted to actually try 1 or 2 live targets.
I would do that.
Because I just wanted to be sure, you see. I could have, I believe, I could
Right.
have done it. I can't recall.
I see.
But yeah, the
Well,
report went out immediately.
I offer myself because I'm not with HackerOne. You can tell me I can do it without following HackerOne's policy. Just a joke. Right. So let's throw the questions to the floor. Anyone? Any questions to Rizan? All right, I'll take that as a no. So I'll give you another question, which is most of us here in Cloud Security Alliance and all the cybersecurity professionals, auditors, and risk professionals, we are all much of a defender as your audience right here. So it will be very valuable for you as an attacker to tell us your side of story and what do you recommend us as the defender to do against people like you, you know.
I feel that as a defender, right, we should understand how the attacker works. I think that's very important. I've been in this industry for over 20 years, and I think what's lacking is that a lot of us don't understand how the attacker works.
Right.
We always jump into the blue side. It's natural because that's what is in the market, right? That's what that's required. People want defenders, not attackers. But
Right.
again, being a threat hunter, we must understand the attacker. So I highly recommend people to be red and blue, not just blue all the time. So by being red sometimes, and then after that jumping into blue, and then maybe coming up again, go back to red, and then go back to blue. Then you keep yourself updated. If you, I know a lot of people come into cybersecurity as a pen tester. It's mainly a stepping stone for a lot of people, right? But then what happens is that they move up to management or blue side or whatever side, and the knowledge is lost because you have to, it's ever evolving landscape, so you have to keep up with it, right? So it's important as a blue teamer, no matter what kind of blue work you do, what kind of defense, you could be a CISO, you could be a manager or even a SOC analyst. It is still important to have hands-on understanding of how a hacker operates. And most of the time, it's not very complex. In reality, if you look at it, even this is actually quite simple, if you ask me. A lot of them who are doing this hacking bug bounties, they come from a very young crowd. Talking about 20s, early 20s.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. Great mind things alike. So I do have some stories to share as well. Like if you are on the defense side, I would recommend to urge your organization to deploy something called security.txt. You can actually look at it in Google. Most big corporations actually deploy it. It's a security standard for all bug bounty hunters, security researchers, for them to give them a proper channel to report their bugs instead of they attacking you. Security TXT would be like a blue ocean strategy. it's a win-win situation for all. Instead of we turn it into a friendly match. Like, we give you a special channel for you to report the bugs, and we can fix it, and we can reward you accordingly. So this is what I would share, and this is what I've been working very hard to deploy in my organization in the Bug Bounty program. So that's what I usually do, and I totally agree with you, Rizan. I mean, as a professional, we need to know both sides of the story. And yes, I agree with you. My hands are still itchy. In the weekends, I'll still put my hands in the terminal, just for fun, you know. So if you think something you can't do in HackerOne, you can just let me know. All right, I think without further ado, less is more. If there's no further questions, we thank you very much to Rizan. I represent Cloud Security Alliance Hong Kong and Macau chapter. Remarkable story. We like you all. We appreciate all you have shared to us, and hopefully we will inspire more young people to join the cybersecurity professionals. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sam. Thank you, everyone. Have a good day.
All right.
Best.
Thank you. I'll catch you
Bye.
up later. Bye.
All right.